Laudetur Jesus Christus. Vatican and World News.
In the headlines this Sunday, November the 15th, Pope Francis celebrates Holy Mass on the 4th World Day of the Poor and prays for victims of a typhoon in the Philippines and of a fire in a Romanian hospital. The Pope also appeals to political authorities in Ivory Coast to establish a climate of mutual trust and dialogue as the country is engulfed in violence after a controversial election. And participants in a virtual pilgrimage organised by the school-feeding charity Mary's Meals pray for peace in South Sudan and Ethiopia. In the Vatican, I'm Linda Bordoni. Pope Francis today issued an appeal to authorities in Ivory Coast to establish a climate of mutual trust and dialogue in the West African nation, where controversial elections have led to violence and a mass exodus from the country.
Noting
that the nation today celebrates the National Day of Peace in a context of social and political tensions that have, he said, unfortunately caused many victims, the Pope asked for prayers to the Lord for national harmony. And he exhorted its citizens to collaborate responsibly for reconciliation and a peaceful coexistence. In particular, he said, I encourage the various political actors to re-establish a climate of mutual trust and dialogue in the quest for just solutions that protect and promote the common good. After Ivory Coast's Constitutional Council announced that President Alassane Ouattara had won his bid for a third term in office on the 9th of November, violence has continued across the country. At least 16 people have reportedly been killed in clashes, and the UN Refugee Agency registered 8,000 people as having fled to neighbouring countries. The Pope was speaking during the Sunday Angelus in St. Peter's Square. He also turned his thoughts to suffering people in other parts of the world and recalled the devastating floods in the Philippines caused by a powerful typhoon.
Sono vicino con la preghiera alle popolazioni delle Filippine.
I express my solidarity with the poorest families who are suffering from this calamity, and I offer my support to all those who are working to help them.
Il mio sostegno a quanti si prodigano per soccorrerle.
The death toll from Typhoon Vamco, the deadliest to hit the Philippines this year, has officially climbed to 67, while many areas remain submerged in a northern region hit by the worst flooding in more than 4 decades. 6 cyclones have hit the Philippines in a span of just 4 weeks, including Vamco and Super Typhoon Goni, the world's most powerful this year.
Ieri, in una struttura ospedaliera in Romania,
Then the Pope recalled a tragic fire that ripped through a hospital in Romania on Saturday, where patients affected by coronavirus were being treated. I express my closeness and pray for the victims, he said, asking those present to join him in prayer. The fire in northeastern Romania killed 10 people and injured 10 others, 7 of them critically. Officials said the blaze spread through the intensive care ward designated for COVID-19 patients at the public hospital in the city of Piatra Neamt. As Armenian forces begin to retreat from areas occupied by Armenia around the disputed Nagorno-Karabakh region in the Caucasus, thousands of residents fled those areas, leaving behind torched homes. As Stefan Bost reports, a Russian-brokered truce is coming into effect after clashes erupted between Armenia and Azerbaijan on the 27th of September.
A convoy of Russian peacekeepers reaches the town of Susha in Nagorno-Karabakh. They are here under a Russian-brokered peace deal that ended 6 weeks of fighting between forces loyal to Azerbaijan and Armenia over the contested enclave. Susha, or Sushi in Armenian, was the town where authorities say the Azerbaijani army seriously damaged its famous Armenian Holy Savior Cathedral. But Azerbaijan's President Ilham Aliyev now says he will protect Christian churches His office said he made the promise in a telephone call with Russian President Vladimir Putin. However, Armenians remain fearful here. They are fleeing areas that on Sunday were handed over to Azerbaijan as part of a controversial peace deal. Residents in the village of Charetkar have begun burning their homes ahead of a handover of this region to Azerbaijan. Some villagers told reporters that they did not want to leave anything useful for Azeris. We will take what we need, Vakan Dalakyan says as he watches his friend's house burn. We will leave the land empty. That's it. Hundreds, if not thousands of combatants and civilians have been killed since fighting flared anew in late September. Nagorno-Karabakh is technically part of Azerbaijan, but was controlled by ethnic Armenians since a war over the enclave in the 1990s killed 30,000 people. The Russian brokered peace deal is aimed at preventing a broader war in the region, but it will take time before wounds have been healed. For Vatican Radio, Vatican News, I am Stefan Bos, reporting.
The 12-day conflict between Ethiopia's government and forces in the country's Tigray region has escalated. The Tigrayan forces today fired rockets across the border into neighbouring Eritrea after claiming Ethiopian soldiers were using an Eritrean airport to attack Tigray. Ethiopia's Prime Minister appeared to deny the accusations in a tweet. But analysts say the latest attacks mark a major uptick in a conflict which has displaced thousands of civilians. Pope Francis has appealed to Ethiopian authorities to work for a mediated solution to the crisis and to reject the temptation of armed clashes. 15 countries have formed the world's largest trading bloc, covering nearly a third of the global economy. The Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership, or RCEP, is made up of 10 Southeast Asian countries as well as South Korea, China, Japan, Australia and New Zealand. The deal excludes the US, which withdrew from a rival Asia-Pacific Trade Pact in 2017. The global school-feeding charity Mary's Meals is hosting its first virtual family pilgrimage this weekend. Since 2017, members of the charity have been coming together to reflect, pray and offer thanks to the Marian Shrine in Medjugorje, Bosnia-Herzegovina, where the charity has its roots. Although the programme will be in a virtual setting, those participating from around the world are joining together to pray the rosary in numerous languages. The founder and CEO of Mary's Meals, Magnus McFarlane Barrow, told Lydia O'Kane that they will be praying for peace in South Sudan and Ethiopia.
South Sudan, where we work, we have both the Dinka and the Nuer languages, representing those two ethnic groups that have been at conflict for so long. Praying a rosary together for peace is very moving. We have children who are deaf in a school we have for deaf children in Liberia, who will be leading their decade of the rosary in sign language. And very movingly, the Daughters of Charity sisters, who are our partners in Tigray in Ethiopia, recorded their decade just before the fighting erupted in Tigray over the last days. And their prayer for peace just becomes even more poignant at this stage as well.
It's interesting that, even though there is COVID, there is hope in the sense of with virtual, with this kind of global communication you have virtually, there's actually a lot that can be done. And coming back to the idea of a rosary for peace, a rosary for people to pray for various things, pray for your own charity. There's so many things you can do, and again, virtually, it's been made possible.
That's right, and that's why in many ways I suppose we feel even more excited about this pilgrimage now than we would have if a small number of us had just travelled to Medjugorje as normal, because now we suddenly find that people from all these different places were coming together, to pray together. Those sisters from Ethiopia or our friends in South Sudan, they wouldn't have been able to come in person to Medjugorje, but now they're on the pilgrimage praying with us. So we would expect many more people to be part of this pilgrimage because of this. So yes, there's all sorts of frustrating barriers this horrible pandemic is throwing up, but sometimes, when we find a way through it, a way around it, it opens up new opportunities we wouldn't have previously thought of.
And that was Magnus MacFarlane Barrow, the CEO and founder of Mary's Meal, speaking there to Lydia O'Kane. And finally, Pope Francis celebrated Mass in St. Peter's Basilica this morning to mark the 4th World Day of the Poor. The Pope instituted the World Day in 2016, which this year is being observed under the theme, Stretch Forth Your Hand to the Poor. In his homily, the Pope urged Christians to spend their lives in prayer, charity and witness to the gospel on behalf of those in need. Devon Watkins reports.
Celebrating Mass on Sunday to mark the World Day of the Poor, Pope Francis reflected on the day's Gospel, in which Jesus recounts a parable about a master who entrusts his servants with various talents. The Pope said the parable sheds light on the beginning, center, and end of our own lives.
Tutto comincia da un grande bene.
Everything, he said, begins with a great good, the grace of God. He said we have been entrusted with a great wealth that depends not on what we possess, but on what we are. Pope Francis warned against the temptation of only seeing what we lack in life, like a better job or more money. If only are illusory words, he said, which keep us from appreciating our talents and putting them to good use. Pope Francis went on to reflect on the center of the parable and our lives, which is service. He said service is what makes our talents bear fruit and gives meaning to life.
Non serve per vivere chi non vive per servire.
Those who do not live to serve, he added, serve for little in this life. The Pope said the Gospel makes clear that faithful servants are those who take risks. The reason we have gifts, he added, is so that we can be gifts. According to Jesus' parable, the Master tells the faithless servant who buried his talent that he should have invested his money with the bankers in order to earn interest. Those bankers, said the Pope, are the poor.
I poveri ci garantiscono una rendita eterna.
The poor guarantee us an eternal income, he said. Even now, they help us to become rich in love. Pope Francis then reflected on what Jesus' parable tells us about the end of our lives. When our lives are over, he said, the love we have given will be revealed as our true riches, rather than the money and power we have accumulated. Finally, Pope Francis recalled an Italian priest who was killed 2 months ago while serving the poor. Father Roberto Malgesini was murdered at his parish in the Italian city of Como, allegedly by a Tunisian migrant with mental problems whom he had been assisting.
Questo prete non faceva teorie.
This priest was not interested in theories, said Pope Francis. He simply saw Jesus in the poor and found meaning in life in serving them. The beginning of Father Roberto's day was prayer, he concluded. The center of his day was charity, and his end was his clear witness to the gospel. I'm Devon Watkins.
And that brings us to the end of this edition of Vatican and World News. Join us again tomorrow at this same time for more. My thanks go to Gustavo Messina in studio in the Vatican. I'm Linda Bordoni. Bye-bye.